And so, my dear ones, welcome into the sanctuary on this wonderful Sunday in this great month of September, the month of new beginnings, the month of rising energy and open receptivity to learning more and more and more about the true essence of our being and all being. How wonderful that is. And that's why we're here in the sanctuary. So welcome everybody, and welcome all of you beautiful people to part of our community who are looking in on us. And so the topic continues, the topic and subject of spiritual ecology that we're asked and invited to contemplate this month. And as a result of that, bring something new and wonderful and something advancing to life and living. And so when it comes to the spiritual ecology thing, and it's a mouthful and it's really a concept that some of us can't quite identify with, but really what it's saying is what Mufasa, King Mufasa, says to his young prince of a son, Simba, in the movie The Lion King. If you haven't seen it, you must see it. And he says to young Simba, when Simba is trying to figure it all out, he says, well, really and truly, all we have to understand is the circle of life. And in his sharing with his son, he's getting across to him how all of life is connected, and that all of us must gain a respect how the circle of life works, and understand that we're all part of it, and what the circle of life does is connect everything and everyone and all aspects of life. Beautiful lesson for us all by King Mufasa. And so Ernest Holmes would simply say, well, there's one life, there's one life, there's one power, there's one presence, there's one infinite intelligence, there's one energy, there's one force. And you and I get to use that power for good. Indeed, that power is using us as well as we are using it. One life, that's all, just one life. Now, I like the circle of life idea. I thought it was a wonderful lesson. I sat up and paid attention and listened. And so this is what spiritual ecology is all about, the understanding of that in all of its aspects. And one of its aspects is sustainability, which is what we're hearing all the time really now. And that just, for us in our teaching, would say, we're just learning how to be better stewards of the planet, how to be citizens of the world, and how to understand the circle of life and how it connects us all. There's no getting away from that, and we're not going to get away from that, and we don't want to get away from that. And so basically it all boils down to the same thing, because on today's recommended ponderance, it says, community life and living, dash. And what's the word again? Love, love, love. And as I was saying this morning, we think about love in so many ways, upside down and inside out. We try and analyze it, but we don't really succeed all that well. And we hear about conditional love and unconditional love and so on. And then I thought to myself last night, I was sitting in my room pondering it all. And I thought, well, love doesn't have to be defined by any other word. Love is love. That's all it is. It's either love or it's not love. And so you and I have to figure that out for ourselves. Oh, help us, sweet spirit, help us. Yes, you and I must figure that out for ourselves. Nobody can tell us. Nobody can get into our consciousness and do it for us. You and I get to do that all on our own. But I'll tell you this much, you and I are well able to recognize love when we are experiencing it, and we're able to recognize its lack when we're not. That's for sure, because it's an intuitive thing within us that knows it. I'll tell you this much about love, though. One thing is, when I'm in the presence of love, I'm safe. I feel safe. I feel perfectly received, and I feel that I'm supported when I'm in the presence of love. And I know when I'm not, too. And so the question is, how can we love enough How can we be the love that we are sufficiently to keep the circle of life flowing beautifully and connected? How can we do that? That's the question. Now, Ernest Holmes says, and I love the book, Can We Talk to God? I mean, I love all his works, but, and every time I come to a different one, I say, oh, God, yes, this is great. And it's always the best book at the time. But in that book, he says, I believe in the brotherhood of mankind. I believe in the brotherhood of mankind. I believe that the expression of spirit is in all of nature. And he says, and I believe that spirit expresses itself most completely in its livingness and in its lovingness. And he says, that happens the most splendidly and perfectly in the minds and in the hearts of each one of us. That's what the good Dr. Ernest Holmes, founder of Science of Mind and Spirit, says. And what he's saying is nothing new, and he was always one to say that. He's just taking ancient wisdom and presenting it in a new way, and that's why we call it New Thought. He takes ancient wisdom in all of the strands of science and religion and philosophy, and he pulls the golden mean out of it all, the common thread, puts it under the umbrella of Science of Mind and Spirit, and says, this is what we believe. This is what he discovered himself to believe and embrace, and this is what we are endeavoring to do as truth students, as students of Science of Mind and Spirit. And we'll always be that, because as long as we're on the planet, there's always more of us to become and express and experience. And there's always more to overcome, because that's the nature of the plane. And it's all good, because why? It's all God, showing up in expressions in many, many different ways. Now, as truth students, we are interested in focusing into faith and not fear. Faith, not fear. We are faith-based, not fear-driven. And so that doesn't mean that you and I won't feel afraid at times, but what we do then is transcend the fear and go back into faith. Go back into faith in what? Faith in the circle of life, faith in divine providence, faith in the source of it all, faith in the one power. There's one power in the universe greater than I am, and I get to use it, and it uses me. Faith in that power, in that presence, in that moreness of my being, which is there. Always, doesn't matter what my bad self is getting up to, it never, ever diminishes that wholeness and that pristine state of grace, which is presence within me. Never diminished in the slightest. As I say, doesn't matter how debauched I become or whatever I try to do to destroy any goodness within me. It's impossible. It's not going to happen. Sooner or later, you and I will wake up into the realization, I'm not this, I'm not this, I'm not this, I'm not this. As Sanskrit says, neti, 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 neti. Not this, not this, not this, not this, not this. I am the presence of spirit in its unique form by means of me. That's what I am. Now, it may sound far-fetched, especially if we're in hard times, especially if we're going through all kinds of stuff, especially if we're dragging still all kinds of luggage around with us that belongs to the past and hasn't been yet healed. And so here we are, all these splendid lights sitting here, all these splendid individualized points of power through which the infinite is desirous of expressing itself in all of its completeness and empowerment if we just open the sluice gates and let it through. But that choice is yours and that choice is mine. But nevertheless, your truth is your truth, and it's not going anywhere, and it will stand. So you and I, as students of truth, as chosen to be on a spiritual trajectory and uncover and release that spiritual power in us can always be at peace, can always be in quiet joy, no matter what chaos is going on around us. And even if there's chaos going on within us, we can keep our minds open enough to know this is not the way it's supposed to be. This is not what I'm supposed to be experiencing. This is not what I have to experience. There's more, there's more, there's more. And if we could just trust even a teensy-weensy little bit. Jesus always said if you have the faith of a mustard seed, you could say to the mountain, be uprooted and go into the sea. The faith of a mustard seed. Have you ever seen a mustard seed? You could hardly see it. It's so small. You have to go home. So, what's with us then? What is it that stops us and blocks us from being all that we can be? It only is one thing, and it's fear. It's fear of one kind and another, fear of not being enough, fear that they're better than I am, fear that they have more than I am, fear that they'll take my place, fear that whatever. And it's a whole lot of nonsense. So we can either continue to operate at that level of anxiety and fear, or we can just pull ourselves right up and stand up straight and decide, no, I'm going to be the more of myself now. I've had enough of being less than I'm capable of being, because I know how that works and it isn't pretty, and I'm done with it. And I can start wherever I am with one tiny step, one tiny change. Now that's personal to you and it's personal to me. How does it look on the global scale? How does that have anything to do with maintaining and sustaining a world that works for everybody and produces a decent life for all? Because really and truly, I know that every single one of us in this room, and the majority of us really, I believe, want a world that the children of the world can inherit, and their children too, wherein they're not afraid if they'll have enough food or enough water to survive. Now, I know we all want that, and I'm not talking about any of us getting crazy upset about worry and concern that mightn't be. It'll all work out, it always does. It will all happen. Sooner or later, when that circle of life will be working in such a beautiful way that we won't even remember it being any other way. Now, you can have that now, I can have that now, but we have to do the work. You and I are the masters of our own lives, and so you and I can only do the work in ourselves that needs to be done in ourselves. And what is that work? It's simple trust, it's faith. It's faith and belief that I am loved, that I am cherished, that I am provided for, that I am a unique and absolutely awesome, incredible, individualized expression of infinite intelligence itself with a glorious mission simply to self-realize, and in responding to that call, to that challenge, raise all of life's consciousness and energy and create a beautiful world of serenity the way it was meant to be. Now, it's not pie in the sky, and it's always for you. Yes, you. Not the ones who are so together, not just for the ones who are special, not for the ones who are called to high places and have great influence and all that. No, you. Each and every single one of us is called to the very same challenge. To what? Be yourself. It's the best sustainability you and I could create of all. Be yourself with capital S. Be yourself. Be yourself. Be yourself. I know it's your guest, but I like to change words around. So, what is it going to be for you anymore in all the rest of your days for the rest of your life? What is it going to be, this thing called life? You decide. Through the way you think, through the way you feel, through the way you choose, through the way you decide, through the way you show up in the world? What is it going to be? And I have to come back to the boomerang effect. The boomerang. It's called the law of reciprocity. It's called the law of attraction. It's called the law of returns. In other words, in our vernacular, what goes around comes around. So you put out a blessing, guess what? You get a blessing back. You give, and you're given to. You shake your fist in anger, and many fists are shaken at you in anger too. You withhold, and life withholds from you. What you put out is what you get back. It's the law of returns. You put it out, you get it back. Now, I'm telling you, we're not dumb, but it's taking us a long time to get that. It really is. We hear it, we read it, we hear it and read it again. But how does it change us knowing that? Why would I, in goodness' name, in life's name, in God's name, put out there something of a negative nature that I know is going to come right back at me in spades? Because it always comes back with interest. You do a little good and a whole lot of good comes at you. You do a little bad and a whole lot of bad comes at you. That's the way it works. It's simple. Sustainability is that simple. What I put out is what I get back. Now, I know each and every one of us are in this room today because we're interested in the circle of life. We're interested in experiencing the full circle of life, the full circle of life. Not just 2/3, but the full circle of life. So I say anybody who's just in there in the circle, just hanging on in there, trying to keep this thing together, oh, please stop worrying about it. You're going to experience that. Absolutely, I will guarantee you that. You will experience it. Now, I don't know when you will experience it, but you will experience it. It may not even be in this thing called this lifetime, but you will experience it. You have all the time in eternity after all. But I think we're in this room because we want to do it sooner rather than later. That's what I'm thinking. I know I do. I'm tired of being less than myself. I mean, nobody wearies me more than I weary myself at times. Truly. And so, what is it going to be from here on in is the question. What is your circle of life going to be like from here on in? Is it still going to be full of suspicion? Is it still going to be full of whatever it is that compresses us and presses us and makes us feel so small? Why are we living so small when we could be living so? We can live like this, or we can live like this. And it's all in the mind and it's all in the heart. And so, where does it begin? It begins in the heart and how I'm feeling in the heart. And that opens me up to access to the spiritual tools in my mind, that I can access those treasures and use them for my good and the good of all. And remember, it's always for my good and the good of all. They're one and the same thing. One life, that life is my life, that life is God life, that life is my life. Now, as we say in Science of Mind and Spirit. Now, where does that enter in your day-to-day life and living when you're out there in the marketplace, when it's a circus out there and people are bumping into you and so on and so forth, and some almost knock you down? Where are these principles in us when we're out there in all of that morass? Where they've always been, right here, but forgotten, mostly. So what you have to do is shake yourself up and wake yourself up, and I love that our young people get it at such a good age, when they're young, and when they can use all of this beautiful information, these spiritual tools, for the rest of their days, and make their lives so much more enjoyable as well as easy in the lives that they're living. Now, it doesn't matter when we get it. Some of us came late to this, and some of us came early to this, but it doesn't matter when. Do you remember good old St. Augustine? I didn't agree with everything he kind of went on about, but a lot of it I do agree with. And he said, "Late have I loved thee, O beauty, so ancient and so new. Late have I loved thee." And he's the one where his mother was always praying that his debauched life would come to an end and he'd come to his wits and come to his senses and turn himself around and become a good guy. And he himself caught that eventually, and his prayer was, "Lord, make me a good man, but not today. Wait until tomorrow." Yeah, which brings me to the reminder that every single saint has a past and every single sinner has a future. And I love that expression, and I love to remind us all of that. Don't you agree with that? Doesn't that make sense? That makes perfect sense. So whichever category you think you're in, it doesn't matter, because they're the same thing. They're the same thing. And what has it to do with? It has to do with wakening up and be ready to shake off the shackles of all my disappointments and all my failures and all my feelings of less than and all of my comparing and contrasting with everything and everyone else. And just standing up, breathing freely, knowing I am uniquely who and what I am. And it's amazing, it's stunning, it's awesome. There's not another one like me. I am a unique individual, one-of-a-kind treasure on this plane, because I am the vessel of the Most High. I've been chosen for some reason. God only knows God's own reasons. But I have been chosen to give expression to infinite intelligence through me. My goodness, what does it take to wake us up and get us giddy with delight? If not that, I don't know what would. Now, I know that's okay, listening to this here, and it feels good, and it sounds good, and it's great, and wasn't that nice, and wasn't that good, and when you go through the door, goes in this ear, and out the window. No, don't let that happen. Don't let that happen. Stay with the understanding. Stay. It doesn't matter. Times may be hard for you, very hard for you, and you may not know or see your way ahead of you, but the knower in you knows the way, sees the way, and if you trust the knower within you, you'll find the way, you'll walk the way, and you will be all that you're capable of being. Don't sell yourself short. And so it is.